Naomi never imagined the man she shared a bed with was living a second life until she found the phone meant to expose everything. The discovery felt like a punch to her chest. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday evening when Naomi reached into the glove compartment of Obinna's SUV, searching for a misplaced receipt. Her fingers touched something cold, slim, and definitely not supposed to be there. A second phone, not his usual model, not even the same brand. Her heart began to pound as she powered it on. No password, no wallpaper. Just a blank screen hiding a storm. And then she saw it. One contact, 10,482 messages. Name, EM. Her breath caught when she opened the latest message, sent just hours earlier. I'm done waiting. Tell me the moment your wife leaves the house. Tonight changes everything. Before diving deeper into this story, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it right now? And if you enjoy dramatic African folktale stories, feel free to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Naomi stared at the phone long after the screen dimmed, as if it might suddenly confess its sins aloud. The silence inside the parked SUV felt suffocating. Her heartbeat thudded in her ears, her palms damp against the unfamiliar device. For a moment, she wondered if this was some sort of prank, if Obinna had bought a spare phone for work or security. But the message she had read was no prank. It was the kind of message that could shatter a marriage, a life, a sense of safety. She locked the phone, set it on her lap, and forced herself to breathe slowly. Her mind raced with images: Obinna laughing with someone else, holding someone else, whispering promises into someone else's ear. But alongside the jealousy was something darker. Fear. The message didn't just hint at infidelity, it hinted at danger. Someone was planning something for tonight, and that someone didn't sound like a lover. They sounded like a threat. Naomi stepped out of the car, careful not to slam the door. The cool evening air brushed against her skin, grounding her just enough to think. She clutched the phone and headed inside her home, a comfortable 2-story house in Enugu, painted soft cream with bright hibiscus flowers lining the walkway. Normally, this place comforted her. Tonight, it felt like a stranger. Inside, Obinna wasn't home yet. He had claimed he would be working late, a phrase he used more frequently over the past few months. Naomi had tried to ignore it, convincing herself he simply had more projects, more contracts, more responsibilities. But a second phone hidden away wasn't something she could ignore. She placed the phone on the dining table, stood back, crossed her arms, and stared at it as though it might sprout claws. Should she go through the messages? Should she wait for him to come home and ask? Should she pretend she never found it and observe his behavior first? Every option felt like stepping onto thin ice. Her mind drifted back to the message. Tonight changes everything. What did that mean? Change how? For whom? She reached for the device again, her hands trembling. She scrolled upward, scanning the wall of blue and gray bubbles. Most messages were short, urgent, coded. I'm waiting, you promised. We need to talk. Send the money first. If you don't cooperate, things will get messy. Her stomach twisted. This wasn't romance. It was blackmail. But why? What had Obinna done to attract this kind of threat? He was a disciplined man, strict, responsible, almost overly organized. His world was predictable, structured, clean. So who was EM? Naomi kept scrolling until she noticed a few older messages with a different tone. More emotional. You said you cared. You can't abandon me like this. You owe me. You know what you did. Her pulse quickened. The messages sounded like two different people writing under the same contact name. Some pleaded. Some demanded. Some threatened. The shifts were too extreme, too inconsistent, almost like multiple personalities. Or multiple senders. She swallowed hard. She needed to stay calm. Think clearly. Collect facts. Her phone buzzed suddenly. Naomi flinched, clutching her chest. It was a text from her sister, Zawadi. Hey sis, you home? Want to talk later? For a moment, Naomi hesitated. She didn't want anyone to know yet, but she needed someone she trusted, someone who wouldn't judge her, someone strong. She replied, yes. Can you come over? Within 20 minutes, Zawadi arrived, stepping inside with her usual confident stride. She was 2 years older, sharper-tongued, and far less tolerant of nonsense. Her expression changed the moment she saw Naomi's face. What happened? Naomi didn't speak. She simply held up the phone. Zawadi raised an eyebrow. Whose is that? Obina's, Naomi whispered. It took Zawadi 5 seconds to switch into protective sister mode. What's inside? Naomi handed her the phone. Zawadi scrolled through the messages, her brows knitting tighter with every line. This is not a mistress, she finally said, shaking her head. This is someone with leverage. Someone trying to control him. These messages, they're not love messages. They're warnings, threats. Naomi sank into a chair. I don't understand, Zawa. What could Obina have done? Why would someone speak to him like this? Why would he hide this from me? Zawadi sat across from her. First thing we do is keep calm. Second thing, we're not confronting him yet. If this is blackmail, then confronting him blindly might push him deeper, make him desperate. We have to be smarter. Naomi nodded slowly. The trembling in her hands eased a little. Zawadi continued, we need to figure out who EM is and what they want and how long this has been going on. Naomi swallowed. He's been distant for months. There you go, her sister said. Something started a few months ago. Something triggered all this. We find that trigger, we find the truth. Naomi exhaled shakily. I'm scared, Zawa. I know. Zawadi reached over and squeezed her hand. But you're not alone. The front door clicked. Naomi's heart leaped in her chest. Obina entered, loosening his tie, tiredness on his face. When he saw Naomi and her sister sitting stiffly at the table, he paused. Is everything all right? Naomi forced a smile. You're home early. Yes, my meeting ended sooner than expected. His eyes flicked to the phone on the table, subtle, but noticeable. Zawadi caught it instantly. Obina didn't ask about the phone, but his shoulders tensed, his breathing changed. He walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, poured himself water. Every move was overly deliberate. Naomi tried to act normal. She didn't want him to know she'd discovered anything. Not yet. He returned to the living room. Did you cook? No, Naomi said quickly. I wasn't feeling well. Concern flashed in his eyes. Genuine concern. Are you okay? For a moment, Naomi almost believed the man she married was incapable of secrets. Almost. But the phone on the table said otherwise. She forced a gentle nod. Just tired. I'll make something quickly, he said, rolling up his sleeves. He always cooked when she was exhausted. This part of him, the nurturing part, conflicted sharply with the threatening messages on the phone. Zawadi leaned close and whispered, He's hiding something, Naomi. I saw his reaction. I know, Naomi murmured back. While Obina cooked, the sisters whispered quietly, planning their next steps. They decided Naomi would keep watching him closely, gather evidence, and try to unlock deeper parts of the phone deleted messages, hidden folders, anything. Later that night, when Zawadi left and Obina finally fell asleep beside her, Naomi lay awake in the dark. The shadows on the ceiling felt heavier than usual. Every breath she took felt thick with uncertainty. She turned slightly, staring at her husband's sleeping face. The face she had loved for 10 years. The face she trusted. A face she no longer recognized. Her hands slipped under the pillow where she had hidden the second phone once more. Tomorrow, she promised herself. Tomorrow she would dig deeper. Tonight, she let the silence swallow her whole. Naomi barely slept. Every time she drifted into a shallow doze, her mind jerked awake again, replaying the same questions until they tangled into knots. Who was EM? What did they want? And why was her husband calm, disciplined, dependable, open, entangled in something so secretive and dangerous? By the time dawn crept through the curtains, she felt drained yet strangely alert, like her body refused to let her collapse before understanding the truth. She lay still beside Obina, watching the faint rise and fall of his chest. He looked peaceful, innocent even, but now Naomi knew better than to trust appearances. When he finally stirred awake, he turned toward her with a small smile. Did you sleep better? She nodded, careful to keep her face neutral. A little. I have an early meeting, he said as he sat up, but I'll call you later. Normally, Naomi would reach out, touch his arm, kiss his cheek, small rituals of affection they'd built over years of marriage. Today, she simply watched him leave the bed, her heart stiffening as she remembered the message. Tell me the moment your wife leaves the house. She wondered suddenly, did he know she had found the phone? Was he waiting for her to go somewhere so he could meet EM? Was he planning something? Or was he afraid? When Obinna finally left the house, Naomi locked the door behind him and hurried upstairs to retrieve the phone from its hiding place. She sat on the edge of the bed, inhaled deeply, and powered it on. The notification bar lit up. One new message, EM. Her grip tightened as she opened it. You went silent. Are you backing out? Don't forget what I have. Cold fear crawled down her spine. Whoever this person was, they weren't simply angry, they were confident. Certain they had control. Certain Obinna couldn't fight back. That meant leverage, evidence, something powerful enough to break him. Naomi wrote down the message, careful not to reply or leave any trace. Then she scrolled back through older messages she hadn't fully read before. Many were short, cryptic, aggressive, but a few stood out. You ruined my life. Now it's your turn. I want compensation. You owe me more than money. If she finds out, everything collapses. Naomi exhaled shakily. This wasn't a simple affair. This was a threat built on something from the past. Something Obinna clearly hoped would stay buried. But what? She needed answers. And she needed them from someone who wouldn't sugarcoat the truth. So she reached for her phone and called Zawadi. Her sister picked up immediately, mourning. You look like you haven't slept. I didn't, Naomi admitted. We need to talk. I'm on my way. 1 hour later, Naomi and Zawadi sat across from each other in the living room. Naomi handed over the second phone again. You were right, Naomi said. This isn't an affair. Or at least it doesn't look like one. Zawadi slipped on her glasses and started reading. Threatening tone, demands, emotional manipulation. This person has something on him, that's for sure. Yes. But what? Naomi asked, her voice shaking. What could Obinna have done? He's not perfect, but he's not dangerous. He doesn't hurt people. Zawadi didn't answer immediately. Instead, she scrolled more slowly, her eyes sharpening. Look here, she said, tapping one message. This one says, I told you I'd never forgive what you did that night. That means something happened years ago. Something serious, Naomi whispered. Something that was never resolved, Zawadi added. Naomi clasped her hands together, trying to steady them. What if it's something unforgivable? Her sister shot her a stern look. Don't torture yourself with possibilities. We find facts. We don't create nightmares. Naomi nodded weakly. Now Zawadi continued, the phone is our only lead. We need to dig. Can you unlock files, photos, anything hidden? Naomi opened the gallery. Most folders were empty. One stood out buried under system directories. A folder named EM Files. Her breath caught. She tapped it open. Inside were photos, blurry shots of a door, a staircase, a woman's silhouette, receipts for money transfers, voice note files that wouldn't play without the right password. And then one photo that made Naomi gasp. A picture of her own house, her front door, taken from the street. Zawadi froze. Oh no! That means they've been near our home, Naomi whispered. Watching, monitoring, maybe even following. Zawadi clenched her fists. Naomi, this isn't just blackmail, it's obsession. Naomi felt her stomach churn. I need answers from Obinna. Not yet, Zawadi warned. If he's being threatened, pressuring him could push him into panic. And people in panic make stupid, dangerous choices. So what do? We gather more information first. That's step one. Naomi sighed, feeling a heavy weight settle over her. Zawadi leaned closer. Let me ask you something. When you read these messages, do you think Obinna is willingly involved? Naomi thought about it carefully, the fear hidden in his silences, his late nights, his defensiveness. Not guilt fear. No, Naomi whispered. He's scared. Exactly. Which means he's probably being controlled. And if he's being controlled, we need to know why. Naomi rubbed her forehead. But where do we even start? Zawadi glanced out the window. Start with the person behind the initials. EM. A woman, a man, a worker, a stranger? Anyone with those initials who overlapped with Obinna's past? Naomi frowned, thinking. We've had housekeepers, nannies, cleaners, but no one with those initials. What about employees at his office? None that I can remember. Old neighbors? Former tenants? Someone he helped years ago? Naomi shook her head helplessly. Zawadi stood up. Then we track location. That apartment in the photos, figure out where it is. Naomi swallowed. You want us to go there? Yes. The messages mentioned meetings at night, deliveries, threats. Something is happening in that apartment, and we need eyes on it. A chill moved across Naomi's skin. This was becoming bigger than she anticipated, but she couldn't back down now. Her marriage was on the line. Her safety, too. Okay, she whispered, we'll go. Just then, Naomi's phone buzzed a message from Obinna. Naomi, I'll be home late tonight. Don't wait up. Zawadi snorted. Convenient. Naomi stared at the message for a long moment. Tonight? Zawa? Tonight was the night mentioned in that message. The one that said, tonight changes everything. Zawadi stiffened. Then we're not waiting. She grabbed her keys. We're following him. Naomi hesitated only a second before nodding. Because whatever waited for them tonight, whatever truth Obinna had been hiding, Naomi needed to face it. Not as a victim, as a woman seeking truth. They stepped outside together, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the driveway. Tonight, they would walk into the darkness. And they would not walk quietly. The sun had already begun to sink behind the rooftops when Naomi and Zawadi slipped into Zawadi's dusty gray sedan, parking at a discreet distance from Obinna's office building. They sat in the shadow of a jacaranda tree, watching employees trickle out of the glass tower one by one. Naomi's heart hammered with every passing minute. For years, she had trusted Obinna's routine work, meetings, business dinners. But tonight, every ordinary detail felt suspicious, darkened by the weight of secrets buried inside a second phone. Stay calm, Zawadi murmured, her eyes fixed on the entrance. We only follow. No confrontation unless necessary. Naomi nodded, clasping her hands so tightly her knuckles turned pale. I know. It took nearly 50 minutes before Obinna finally emerged. He wore a crisp navy suit jacket slung over his arm, his phone pressed to his ear. He glanced around quickly, not nervously, but cautiously, like a man scanning for something unseen. Or someone. There, Zawadi whispered. He's heading to the car. They watched Obinna get into his silver Lexus and pull out of the parking lot. Zawadi waited a respectful distance before following, the sedan merging into the flow of evening traffic. The city's rhythm swelled around them, honking motorcycles, vendors pulling carts, pedestrians weaving through cars. But inside the sedan, silence coated the air like thick fog. Where do you think he's going? Naomi whispered. Wherever he's been hiding from you, Zawadi replied. Let's find out. The Lexus led them down wide roads lined with tall palm trees, past shopping plazas and busy eateries, until suddenly the scenery changed. The streets grew narrower, quieter, residential. They passed rows of modest apartment buildings, then turned toward a more secluded neighborhood. Naomi's breath caught. It looked eerily familiar. Zawadi noticed her reaction. You recognize this place? This area, it looks like the photos from the phone. The staircase, the building numbers. Zawa, I think he's going to the apartment. Zawadi exhaled sharply. Then this is it. They slowed as Obinna's car turned into a gated complex, a rundown block of apartments with peeling yellow paint and flickering hallway lights. The security gate was half open, unmanned. Zawadi parked across the street, keeping the sedan's headlights off. Obinna got out, glanced around, and walked toward the staircase on the far right, the same staircase Naomi had seen in those photos. He moved quickly but with caution. He's nervous, Naomi whispered. He should be, Zawadi muttered. Let's go. They exited the sedan quietly, staying in the shadows cast by the dim streetlights. Naomi's heart pounded as they crept toward the building, watching Obinna disappear up the stairwell. Which floor? Zawadi asked. Naomi swallowed. Second. The door with the blue paint scuffed on the bottom corner. They ascended slowly, careful not to make noise. Each step echoed faintly in the concrete stairwell, amplifying Naomi's anxiety. Her palms were sweating, her breathing shallow. She wasn't sure if she was ready to see what waited behind that door, but she had no choice. When they reached the second floor, the hallway was dim. Only one bulb flickered overhead, casting uneven shadows. Naomi saw the door immediately slightly chipped, painted a faded blue just like the pictures. Muffled voices leaked from inside. A woman's voice, and Obinna's. Naomi froze, her chest tightening painfully. Zawadi placed a hand on her shoulder. Stay calm, she whispered. We listen first. Naomi pressed her ear to the door. her breath trembling. Inside, Obina's voice came through low, tense. Please, Mirembe. I did everything you asked. I've paid you every month for years. Naomi's eyes widened. Zawadi's brows shot up. The woman answered, her voice sharp, filled with venom. And yet you think that's enough? You think money erases what happened? You think it brings back what you took from me? Naomi flinched. Mirembe, she whispered. Zawa, that name she used to work for us. Years ago. She left, suddenly. Zawadi nodded slowly. So E.M. is E. Mirembe. Naomi's stomach dropped. Inside, Obina continued, his voice strained with desperation. I am sorry. I swear I didn't mean. You didn't mean to ruin my life? Mirembe snapped. You didn't mean to destroy everything I had? Do you know how long I waited for you to come clean? Years, Obina. Years. There was a sound, something slamming. A chair? A fist on the wall? Naomi's heart seized. What did you do? She whispered, trembling. Zawadi held her wrist. Not yet. Keep listening. Mirembe's tone shifted, dark and cold. Now listen carefully. If you don't finish the final payment tonight, I'll tell your wife everything. I will show her the proof, the photos, the recordings, the messages. She will know exactly what kind of man you really are. Obina sounded broken. Please, Mirembe. I beg you. I can't lose her. Naomi is my world. Don't do this. Naomi's breath caught. Obina's voice carried raw, pain, not guilt of cheating, but guilt of something he feared would destroy them both. Mirembe scoffed loudly. Your world? If she was your world, you wouldn't have touched me that night. Naomi's body went cold. Zawadi's expression hardened, eyes sharpening like blades. Touched her? Naomi whispered. Zawa, what does she mean? Wait, Zawadi murmured. The truth is coming. Inside, silence stretched like a taut wire. Then Obina spoke quietly, voice thick with remorse. I've told you before, and I'll say it again, I was drunk. I was grieving. It was the night after my father died. I didn't know what I was doing. I thought you were someone else. I apologized. I tried to make it right. You call money an apology? Mirembe hissed. No, Obina rasped. I call regret an apology. I call years of paying whatever you demanded an apology. I call losing sleep, living in fear, hiding this from my wife an apology. I have been your prisoner, Mirembe, but it cannot continue. Naomi gasped, covering her mouth. She felt the ground tilt beneath her. Zawadi grabbed her shoulders, steadying her. Breathe. Naomi, breathe. Inside the apartment, Mirembe let out a bitter laugh. You think you can walk away now? After everything? No. Tonight, you either pay what I ask or your life burns. There was a thump, maybe Obina stepping back or Mirembe pacing. Naomi pressed closer to the door. Mirembe, Obina said, voice firmer now. This has to stop. You've taken enough. Please let me go. No, she snarled. Not until I destroy you the way you destroyed me. Naomi stepped back from the door, her pulse a frantic drumbeat. Zawadi whispered, We go in. Naomi hesitated. What if? No more waiting, Zawadi said, jaw tightening. She's threatening your husband. She's unstable. And we need the truth. Naomi inhaled shakily and nodded. Together, the sisters pushed the door open. It wasn't locked. It swung wide with a sharp crack. Inside, both Obina and Mirembe turned sharply toward Themyaz, wide, stunned, frozen in the middle of their confrontation. For a long, breathless moment, no one moved. Naomi stepped inside first. Start talking, she said, her voice breaking yet fierce. Both of you. Right now. Obina's face drained of color. Mirembe clenched her jaw. And then the room erupted. The room exploded into noise the moment Naomi's words cut through the stale air. Mirembe's nostrils flared, her eyes burning with hatred. Obina stumbled backward, his face pale, his breath coming in short bursts, as if the walls were suddenly closing in. Naomi could feel her pulse in her fingertips. She didn't feel like herself, didn't feel like the gentle wife who arranged flowers on Sundays, who ironed Obina's shirts, who believed loyalty and patience could fix anything. She felt like a storm finally unleashed. A woman who had been lied to one time too many. A woman who needed the truth more than she needed air. Zawadi stepped forward with the force of a shield. Don't even think of lying, she said coldly. We heard everything. Mirembe shot them a venomous glare. You shouldn't be here, and yet we are, Zawadi replied. Now talk. Silence stretched heavy across the room. Then Obinna, as if his legs could no longer hold him, slumped onto a worn-out wooden chair. He buried his face in his hands. Naomi hated the sight of him like that, not because he looked weak, but because she didn't know whether he deserved sympathy or condemnation. Mirembe finally spoke, voice sharp as broken glass. What do you want me to say? That he ruined my life? That he paid me just enough to keep me from destroying his? Fine, that's the truth. Naomi met her gaze. Tell me what happened. But Mirembe shook her head with a bitter smile. No, He will. All eyes shifted to Obinna. He didn't look up. Obinna, Naomi said softly yet firmly, look at me. Her voice trembled, but her strength did not. Slowly, painfully, he lifted his head. His eyes were red, haunted. Naomi, I never meant for you to find out like this. You hit a second phone, she said. You lied for years. You meant for me to find nothing. Obinna swallowed hard. I was wrong, Zawadi scoffed. Start talking. Obinna shut his eyes for a moment, gathering whatever pieces of courage he could. When he opened them, the truth began to spill out like a confession, struggling to be freed from years of suffocation. It happened 5 years ago, he said. The night after my father died, I was broken. I drank too much. The house was full of relatives, noise, grief. I went upstairs to get away. I wasn't thinking clearly. I went to the guest room. Naomi's stomach tightened as dread crept up her spine. Obinna continued, I thought someone else was there. I don't know why or how, but I thought. You thought I wanted you, Mirembe spat. Tell her the truth. You came on to me. You touched me. Obinna flinched. I didn't know it was her. I thought. Don't you dare say her name, Naomi snapped, her voice laced with a pain she didn't know she could feel. Don't you dare make an excuse by involving me. Obinna looked like he'd been slapped. Naomi, I swear. I realized what happened only when she screamed and pushed me away. I stopped immediately. I apologized. I begged for forgiveness. I offered to compensate her, to help her move, to shut me up, Mirembe interjected. You didn't try to help me. You tried to bury what happened. Obinna's shoulders slumped. He didn't deny it. Naomi's breath wavered. So all these years, you've been paying her off? Yes, he said quietly. Every month. She kept asking for more. I kept giving. I didn't want to involve you. I didn't want you to think I'm a monster. And when did the threats start? Zawadi demanded. 3 years ago, Obinna said. She said she wanted more money or she'd go to the police. Or worse, she'd come to you. Then a year ago, someone else got involved. Naomi's head snapped up. Someone else? Obinna nodded. I could tell in the messages. The tone changed. The demands changed. It wasn't only Mirembe anymore. Someone started advising her, pressuring her, taking a cut of the money. So who? Naomi asked. I don't know. Obinna rubbed his forehead. But I knew if I didn't cooperate, they would ruin us. For a moment, the room was suspended in disbelief and suffocating tension. Naomi tried to breathe, but the air felt thick, heavy, poisoned. So all those years, she whispered, you lived with this secret, and you didn't trust me enough to tell me? Obinna's expression cracked. I wanted to protect you. Naomi shook her head. No, you wanted to protect yourself. The truth stung them both. Mirembe folded her arms. Are we done here? Zawadi turned to her sharply. Not even close. Naomi straightened, feeling the strength in her spine return. Why now? Why escalate? Why threaten him tonight? A strange look flickered across Mirembe's face fear. Yes, Zawadi said slowly. Why tonight? Mirembe hesitated. For the first time, the venom in her posture faltered. She looked away, her jaw tightening. I said too much, she muttered. Naomi took a step toward her. Who is controlling you? I said I shouldn't talk, Mirembe snapped. He'll find out. He? Naomi repeated, her voice dropping. So there is someone else. Mirembe's silence was confirmation enough. Zawadi stepped beside Naomi. Tell us the truth, Mirembe. If someone is forcing you, we can help you. A harsh laugh escaped Mirembe. Help? You can't help me, no one can. He knows everything. He watches everything. He controls everything. A shiver went through Naomi. Who is he? Mirembe shook her head, backing away like a cornered animal. I can't say. Why? Naomi pressed. Because he'll kill me, she snapped. The room fell silent. For a moment, none of them moved. Even the air stilled. Zawadi recovered first. You're saying the person blackmailing Obinna is dangerous? As in actually dangerous? Mirembe's eyes darted toward the window. You shouldn't be here. Any of you. He told me to keep quiet. He told me to threaten Obinna into paying more. And if he didn't? She sucked in a shaky breath. Naomi's voice softened. If he didn't, what? They were coming for him, she whispered. Tonight, Naomi felt the ground move beneath her. Coming for him? She echoed. To do what? Before Mirembe could answer, something outside the apartment made all three of them freeze. A car door slammed. Heavy footsteps climbed the stairs. Mirembe's face drained of color. No, he wasn't supposed to come this early. Zawadi grabbed Naomi's hand. We need to hide. But it was too late. A shadow stopped right outside the door. A low, cold voice slipped through the cracked wood. Open the door, Mirembe. Naomi's blood ran cold. Obinna stood up abruptly. It's him. Who? Naomi demanded. Obinna whispered one name. Sefu. Before Naomi could process it, the door handle turned. Very slowly. Then the door swung open, revealing a tall, broad-shouldered man with eyes full of menace. And a smile that promised destruction. Kedu, he said softly. I see we have company. Naomi's heart stopped. Tonight had truly begun. For a moment, no one in the room breathed. Sefu filled the doorway like a dark omen, tall, broad, the kind of presence that made the air itself feel heavier. His skin was smooth but scarred on one cheek, as if someone had once dragged a blade across it. His eyes were the real threat, cold, calculating, the eyes of someone who had watched people break and took notes. Naomi instinctively stepped back. Zawadi moved in front of her like a shield. Obinna stood frozen behind the table. Mirembe clasped her hands together, trembling. Sefu's lips curled into a slow, cruel smile. Well, he said softly, closing the door behind him with a click. I expected only Obinna. But seeing the wife here, and her brave sister, he let his gaze slide across them like a knife. This is interesting. No one answered. There was nothing to answer. Sefu walked in slowly, not with the rushed movements of someone afraid of being caught, but with the casual confidence of a man who owned the room, owned the people in it, owned the narrative. He stopped beside Mirembe. She shrank away. Did I or did I not tell you, Sefu murmured, to keep this quiet? Mirembe's voice cracked. Two didn't call them. They found out. He clicked his tongue disapprovingly. You talk too much, Mirembe. Obinna finally found his voice. Sefu, leave my family out of this. Sefu turned to him, amused. Family? My dear Obinna, you involved your family the moment you opened your mouth 5 years ago. The moment you lost control. We're simply making use of your mistake. He leaned against the wall, folding his arms. You know, he said conversationally, I always wondered when your wife would find the second phone. I knew she'd stumble on it eventually. Women always do. His grin widened. But I didn't expect her to be this bold. Naomi clenched her fists. Who are you to threaten my husband? Sefu tilted his head, pretending to think. Threaten? No. I'm a businessman. I simply collect debts. What debt? Zawadi snapped. Blackmail isn't a debt. Blackmail? Sefu repeated, raising an eyebrow. What an ugly word. I prefer motivation. Naomi stepped forward despite her shaking legs. What do you want from us? Sefu sighed dramatically. Finally, a sensible question. He gestured lazily. Sit. No one moved. He dropped the smile. I said sit. The command slithered with authority. Naomi and Zawadi exchanged a look and reluctantly sat. Obinna followed, his face gray with dread. Mirembe sank into the farthest corner of the room. Sefu walked in front of them slowly, studying each face like a collector inspecting merchandise. Let's talk, he said, because tonight things change. Naomi's heart thudded. Sefu continued. 5 years ago, Obinna here had a little moment of weakness. A moment I could have easily exploited back then. But I waited. Why rush something so profitable? Zawadi glared. You used Mirembe. Wrong, Sefu said calmly. I rescued Mirembe. She came to me crying, terrified, ashamed, jobless. I offered her protection. In return, she helped me gather information. Mirembe burst out, "You forced me." Seifu didn't even look at her. "And you benefited greatly. Don't rewrite history, dear." Naomi exhaled shakily. "So you changed the tone of the messages." "Of course," Seifu grinned. Mirembe was too emotional. She wanted apologies. I wanted money. "And the threats?" Naomi asked. "Insurance," he replied. Obinna shook his head slowly. "I gave you everything. I paid every month. Why escalate? Why tonight?" Seifu's smile faded. "Because I want more." He stepped closer to Obinna until their faces were only inches apart. "You see, Obinna, I've found myself in a challenging financial situation, and you good old reliable you are my salvation." Obinna swallowed. "How much?" Seifu raised one finger, then two, then three. Slowly. 3 million. Naomi gasped. 3 million? Seifu, Obinna whispered, his voice cracking. 2 don't have that. "Oh, I know," Seifu said pleasantly. "But your company does, your accounts do, your connections do." Naomi felt the world spinning. "You want to ruin us." "No," Seifu corrected. "You ruined yourselves. I'm simply collecting what I'm owed." Then he crouched to Naomi's level, his face inches from hers. "Tell me something, Naomi. How does it feel to discover your husband's sins not through words but through proof? Through thousands of messages, hidden photos, secret payments?" He smiled, slow and cruel. "Does it break your heart?" "It should." Naomi refused to look away. "You're a monster," Seifu chuckled. "No, I'm simply practical." Zawadi stood abruptly. "You think you can walk in here and intimidate us? We're not afraid of you." Seifu's smile didn't falter, but his eyes hardened. "Sit down, Zawadi." "I won't," she snapped. He stepped toward her, towering, predatory, but Zawadi stared back without blinking. The air crackled with danger. Naomi rose shakily and placed a hand on her sister's arm. "Zawa, please." Zawadi's jaw clenched. Slowly she sat again. "Good," Seifu said. "Now the terms. Obinna transfers 3 million into the account I send him within 72 hours. Do that, and your secret dies with me. And if we don't," Naomi whispered. Seifu's smile returned slow, chilling. "Then I ruin him publicly. I release every photo, every message. I leak the story to major media outlets. I contact your company partners, your church, your neighbors." He paused, savoring the moment, "and of course your wife." Naomi's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. Zawadi exploded. "You can't do this." "I already have," Seifu said softly. "This conversation is simply courtesy." Obinna held his forehead, trembling. "Please, I can't pay that." "Then you'd better find a way," Seifu replied. "Because if you fail, you lose everything." Seifu walked to the door, nodding once to Mirembe, cold, dismissive, triumphant. But before he left, he turned back to Naomi. "And you, dear wife, you should ask yourself one question tonight." His smile widened. "If your husband could hide 5 years of secrets from you, what else is he hiding?" With that, he stepped out and disappeared into the night. Silence fell like a collapsing roof. For several long seconds, no one moved. Then Obinna broke. He sank to the floor, covering his face, sobbing uncontrollably. All the years of fear, guilt, pressure finally spilling over. Naomi watched him, her heart torn violently in 2 directions, compassion and betrayal. Zawadi knelt beside her. "We need a plan," she whispered. "We cannot let that man destroy you." But Naomi couldn't speak. Her mind replayed Seifu's last words over and over. If he hid this for 5 years, what else is he hiding? What if this wasn't the only secret? What if the man she married wasn't the man she thought he was? As Obinna cried on the floor, Naomi made a silent promise. She would uncover everything, every truth, every lie, every shadow Obinna kept hidden. She would not live in darkness anymore. Tonight, she would begin her own investigation. And nothing, neither fear nor loyalty, would stop her. Naomi had always believed that heartbreak announced itself loudly through screaming, crying, shattered plates on kitchen tiles, or stormy arguments that split the night. But tonight, she learned that heartbreak could arrive in complete silence. A cold, suffocating silence that wrapped itself around her ribs until she could barely breathe. Obinna sat slumped against the wall, his face buried in his hands. His sobs had quieted, replaced by a hollow, trembling exhaustion. His shoulders shook with the weight of years he had carried alone, years of fear, guilt, and blackmail. Yet Naomi felt no instinct to reach out, no urge to comfort him. She stood several feet away, staring as though the man in front of her was a stranger she had once met briefly, not the husband she had slept beside for a decade. Zawadi hovered beside her, a hand on her elbow. "Don't decide anything now," she whispered. "You're in shock." Shock was too small a word. Naomi felt as if her entire world had flipped upside down, spilling every trust, every memory, every belief onto the floor in a messy, tangled heap. She turned to Mirembe, who sat hugging her knees in the corner, face streaked with fear and shame. For years, Naomi had thought of her as nothing more than a former employee who had vanished abruptly. Now, she was the key to the darkest chapter of Naomi's marriage. "Look at me," Naomi said quietly. Mirembe flinched but raised her eyes. "Why did you stay silent all these years?" Naomi asked, her voice thin but steady. "Why didn't you come forward? Why use threats instead of seeking justice?" Mirembe swallowed hard. Her voice trembled. "Because I didn't want the shame. I didn't want people to blame me. They always blame the woman. You would have blamed me too." Naomi's throat tightened. "You don't know what I would have done." "No," Mirembe whispered, "but I knew what everyone else would do. They'd say I tempted him, that I seduced him, that I wanted it." Naomi closed her eyes, pain curling inside her chest. "And then Sefu came along," Mirembe continued, her voice cracking. "He found out what happened. He told me I was stupid for not taking advantage. He said I deserved compensation. That Obinna owed me. At first I believed him." Zawadi scoffed. "He manipulated you." "Yes," Mirembe whispered. "He made me feel like revenge was the only path. But then he realized Obinna had money, real money, and suddenly it wasn't about justice anymore. It was about power." Mirembe covered her face and sobbed. "I'm sorry, Naomi. I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt you." Naomi's voice was barely audible. "Then why didn't you stop?" "I tried," she whispered desperately. "A year ago, I told Sefu I didn't want to continue. And that's when he threatened me. He told me if I backed out, he'd frame me for everything. He'd leak messages saying I seduced your husband. He'd tell the police I was lying. He even threatened my family. I was trapped." Naomi's chest ached with a confusing blend of anger and pity. She looked back at Obinna, who was still trembling on the floor. "You allowed this to continue," Naomi said to him. "You gave him power." Obinna finally lifted his face. His eyes were swollen, desperate. "Naomi, I didn't know what else to do. If I confessed back then, I would have destroyed you. Destroyed us. And lying for years was better?" Naomi asked. "I was scared. So you tortured both of us to save yourself." Obinna's face crumpled. "I'm sorry." Naomi felt tears sting her eyes but refused to let them fall. Zawadi stepped forward. "We can't stay here." "Not after Sefu came. He could come back." She was right. The room suddenly felt too small, too dangerous. Naomi exhaled deeply. "Let's go." Zawadi helped Obinna stand while Naomi supported Mirembe, who could barely walk. They slipped out of the apartment quickly, almost sprinting down the stairs. The night felt colder, sharper as though danger clung to the air itself. Once they reached the sedan, Zawadi turned to Naomi. "Where do you want to go?" Naomi thought for several seconds. Her brain felt slow, foggy. "Home," she murmured. But as they drove through the dimly lit streets, Naomi couldn't shake the image of Sefu's cold smile. He would come after them. He wasn't the kind of man who let his prey escape. And worst of all, Naomi suspected the truth she now knew wasn't even the whole story. They reached Naomi's house around midnight. The living room felt eerie, too quiet, as though the walls themselves were listening. Naomi paced in circles while Zawadi guided Mirembe to the guest room and offered her a blanket. Obinna sat on the couch, shoulders hunched, staring at nothing. Naomi turned to him, voice trembling. "Tell me everything. No more secrets, no more lies." Obinna rubbed his face with shaking hands. I don't know what else you want me to say. All of it," she insisted. "What else happened that night? What did you tell them? What didn't you tell me?" Obinna hesitated. Zawadi's tone sharpened. "Don't make her ask twice," Obinna finally exhaled. "There's more." Naomi's stomach clenched. When the incident happened, Obinna began slowly. I wasn't the only one in the room. Naomi blinked. What? There was someone else who saw, he whispered. Someone who filmed it. A cold wave washed through the room. Who? Naomi asked. Obinna hesitated. My cousin. The one who hated me because my father left me the company. He's the one who gave the recording to Sifu. They're connected. They've been partners in this for years. Naomi felt dizzy. Your family was involved? Obinna nodded miserably. Yes. Zawadi swore under her breath. So it wasn't just a mistake. They turned it into a weapon. Naomi sat down slowly, her legs trembling. Why didn't you tell me? Because, Obinna whispered, voice breaking. I didn't want you to see me differently. I didn't want you to know how weak I really was. Naomi let out a bitter laugh. You think I see you as weak now? No, Obinna. I see you as a coward. He flinched. And the worst part, Naomi continued, her voice shaking, is that I can't even tell if I'm speaking to my husband or a stranger. For the first time, Obinna didn't try to defend himself. He just stared at her with hollow eyes. Zawadi stepped forward. Naomi, you need rest. We will figure out the next step tomorrow. But Naomi shook her head. No, I need answers tonight. She stood and walked toward the bedroom hallway. Where are you going? Obinna called weakly. Naomi didn't turn back. To your study. Obinna paled. Naomidan, I'm going to look through every drawer, every document, every password-protected file, she said, her voice cold as ice. If you won't tell me the whole truth, I will find it myself. Zawadi placed a hand on Naomi's shoulder. I'm with you. Naomi nodded, grateful but numb. As they entered the study, Naomi flicked on the light. The room smelled faintly of coffee, an old paper. Obinna's sanctuary, his place of comfort. Now it would become the place of revelation. Naomi opened drawers, rifled through folders, checked financial statements, bank transfers, handwritten notes. She logged into his laptop. She scrolled through emails, encrypted files, old messages, hidden archives, and then she found it, a folder titled Insurance. She clicked it open. Inside were scanned documents, bank transaction histories, and legal correspondence from a law firm she didn't recognize. Her hands shook as she clicked the first letter. Zawadi leaned over her shoulder, and both sisters froze when they read the header. Notice of Paternity Dispute Confidential Claim. Naomi didn't even feel the paper slip from her fingers. Zawadi caught her just as her knees buckled. How? Naomi whispered, voice cracking. How many lies, how many secrets can one man hide? Her voice broke completely, and for the first time that night, Naomi allowed herself to cry. Not just for the past she thought she had, but for the future she no longer recognized. For several agonizing seconds, Naomi could not move. Her finger-shaking moments Agonau felt numb, useless. Her vision blurred at the edges, like the room itself was collapsing inward. The single sheet of paper lay sprawled across the desk, its words glowing like poison. Notice of Paternity Dispute Confidential Claim. Zawadi reacted first. She grabbed the paper, reading it twice, then a third time, her jaw tightening with every line. Naomi, this is dated 2 years ago. 2 years. 2 years of smiles. 2 years of I love you. 2 years of pretending nothing was wrong. Naomi felt her throat closing. A paternity dispute? For who? With who? Zawadi flipped through the rest of the documents with harsh, rapid movements. There are names here blacked out. But look, this letter is from a law firm. Someone claimed Obinna fathered a child. They demanded a DNA test. Naomi grabbed the desk for balance. Did he take the test? Zawadi scanned another page. Yes. It says the sample was provided, but the results aren't in this file. Naomi's knees buckled completely. Zawadi lunged forward, catching her before she hit the floor. No, Naomi whispered, tears spilling freely now. Please, no. Zawadi held her tightly. Naomi breathed, but Naomi couldn't. She felt suffocated, caged in a nightmare where every truth revealed only another lie beneath it. She had loved Obinna fiercely, deeply, faithfully. She had trusted him with every piece of her life. And he had trusted her with nothing. Why didn't he tell me? Naomi choked out. Why didn't he come to me? Why hide something this big, this painful? Zawadi stroked her back gently. Because he's terrified. Because he's been living in fear for years. Because he doesn't know how to face the consequences of his own actions. But Naomi shook her head violently. No, Zawa, there's more. This isn't just fear, this is deceit. Persistent, deliberate, daily deceit. She pushed herself up slowly, wiping her tears with trembling fingers. I need to talk to him. Naomi? No. Her voice hardened like steel. I can't breathe until I know the truth. I need answers, every answer. She left the study with a storm gathering behind her ribs. Obinna was still on the couch, staring blankly at the wall. He didn't look up until Naomi stood directly in front of him. Her face was streaked with tears, her body tense, her voice hollow. Who is the child? She asked. Obinna looked like someone trapped under rubble, crushed and hopeless. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Naomi repeated, firmer, louder, Who is the child? Obinna pressed a shaking hand to his forehead. Naomi, please. Zawadi narrowed her eyes. Answer her. Obinna. I don't know, he burst out. I swear I don't know. Naomi's breath trembled. Then explain this. She thrust the paternity document toward him. Obinna stared at it as if it were a ghost. I hoped you'd never see that. And yet here we are, Naomi snapped. Explain. Obinna swallowed hard. 2 years ago, I received a letter from a law firm. Someone claimed I fathered a baby during a business trip, one I barely even remember because I was drunk. I didn't believe it, I still don't, but they had details, too many details. Naomi's voice dropped to a whisper. So you cheated on me twice? No! Obinna shouted desperately. I swear, Naomi. You swore a lot of things, she cut him off. Everything you've said tonight has been a swear, and none of it has been the truth. Obinna's eyes filled with tears again. I've made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But Naomi, I've never willingly betrayed you. Naomi laughed a broken, bitter sound. Oh? So the first time you didn't know what you were doing because you were grieving. The second time because you were drunk. Is every mistake just something you stumbled into? Naomi. No, she said firmly. For once, tell me the truth. He took a deep breath. The letter said the mother wanted child support. They demanded a DNA test to confirm it. So I did it. Naomi held her breath. And the result? Obinna's lips trembled. Negative. Naomi sagged backward, gripping a chair for support. Relief crashed into her like a wave, but it wasn't a pure relief. It was heavy, tangled with rage and grief and sorrow. So, the child wasn't yours. No, Obinna whispered. It wasn't. Then why didn't you tell me? She cried. Because, Obinna said miserably, I didn't want to give you one more reason to doubt me. You were already pulling away after we lost the pregnancy. I didn't want to break you further. Naomi felt her heart twist. So instead you carried this? Alone? Instead you lied? Hid documents? Hid trauma? Hid everything? That's not protection, Obinna. That's cowardice. He lowered his head. You didn't protect me, Naomi said softly. You protected your image of yourself. Zawadi crossed her arms. So let me get this straight. You assaulted Mirembe by mistake. You paid her off. Then someone else blackmailed you. Then someone claimed you fathered a child. And in all that, your wife, your partner, never got the truth. Obinna didn't answer. Pathetic, Zawadi muttered. Naomi wiped her face again. This doesn't add up, Obinna. Sefu said he had evidence. Your cousin filmed you. But this paternity case, the timeline doesn't match your business trip. Someone orchestrated this. Zawadi's eyebrows lifted. You think everything is connected? Naomi nodded slowly. Yes. Something bigger is going on. Obinna rubbed his temples. Naomi, please, I can't. No, Naomi said sharply. You don't get to break right now. I've been breaking all night. I've been carrying the pain. Now you will carry the truth. He swallowed. Naomi leaned closer. Tell me everything you know about your cousin. Obinna hesitated, then finally said, His name is Chinedu. He was jealous after my father chose me as successor. He tried to take over the company twice. He failed. My father cut him off financially. After he died, Chinedu tried again. Naomi felt her stomach churn. So he hated you. Obinna nodded. Enough to ruin me. Zawadi clicked her tongue. Then he partnered with Sefu. It makes sense, Naomi murmured. The recordings, the surveillance, the threats. They needed Mirembe as the emotional anchor, someone innocent enough to be manipulated. Zawadi added, and you were the perfect target, guilt-ridden, scared, easy to control. Obinna lowered his head. I was trying to protect you. Naomi's voice softened, but with a sad, exhausted edge. No. Protecting me would have meant telling the truth. She stood up and walked toward the stairs. Where are you going? Obinna asked, panic rising in his voice. To sleep, Naomi said quietly. Alone. His face fell. Naomi, please. She didn't look back. Tomorrow, she said, her voice trembling, we face Sefu. All of us. But tonight, I need to remember how to breathe. She climbed the stairs slowly, feeling the weight of her broken world on every step. Behind her, Obinna sank to his knees again. Zawadi stared at him with cold disappointment. And Naomi Ance, a soft-hearted, trusting wife, felt a new resolve forming inside her chest. Not anger, not sorrow, but determination. She would uncover every hidden truth. Every shadow Obinna and Sefu and Chinedu had cast over her life. And when she was done, she would decide whether this marriage deserved a future. Tonight, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, her heart cracked but unbroken. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin. Naomi woke with the kind of heaviness that felt physical, like someone had placed stones on her chest during the night. She hadn't truly slept, only drifted in and out of shallow, haunted dreams. When the first pale streaks of dawn filtered through the curtains, she sat up slowly, her limbs stiff, her mind still replaying everything from the night before. The paternity documents, the confession, Sifu's threat, her husband's broken sobs, and the worst part, she still didn't feel she knew the full truth. She slipped out of bed, wrapped a shawl around her shoulders, and descended the staircase. The house was quiet, unusually so. She found Obinna asleep on the living room couch, curled into himself, his face blotchy from crying. She watched him for a moment, this man she'd loved for 10 years. This man she'd defended, trusted, honored. She felt nothing. Not anger, not tenderness, just numbness. Zawadi emerged from the guest room a minute later, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Her voice was hoarse. You okay? No, Naomi answered honestly. But I'm standing. Zawadi nodded. Good. Because we have work to do. They moved into the kitchen, speaking in hushed tones. Naomi made tea but barely drank it. Her thoughts were already racing ahead. What's the plan? Zawadi asked. Naomi inhaled deeply. First, we need to understand who we're truly dealing with. Sefu is dangerous. But no one as cunning as him works alone. And if Chinedu is involved, this is bigger than personal revenge. It's strategy. Zawadi folded her arms. Explain. Chinedu knows Obinna, Naomi said. Knows his weaknesses, his guilt, his shame. He knew the worst thing Obinna ever did was that night with Mirembe. That's leverage. And he found Sefude muscle. The manipulator use it. So the paternity dispute? Zawadi asked. I think it was a setup, Naomi said. A test. They wanted to know how vulnerable Obinna was. How desperate. What he'd do to keep a secret. Zawadi exhaled sharply, and he failed that test. No, Naomi whispered. He walked straight into their trap. They both turned when footsteps sounded from the living room. Obinna appeared in the doorway, eyes swollen, face washed out, shoulders heavy. Naomi, he said quietly, voice cracking with exhaustion. Can we talk? She stared at him for several seconds. We will, she said, but not the way you think. He blinked in confusion. What do you mean? Naomi gestured to the table. Sit, I have questions. And this time, Obinna, there can be no lies. He sat slowly, fear tightening his jaw. Naomi began calmly, but her tone was razor sharp. How many people knew about what happened with Mirembe? Obinna swallowed. Just Chinedu. I didn't tell anyone else. And you never went to the police? Naomi pressed. How could I? Obinna asked, anguished. Telling the police would destroy us. Destroy me. Destroy me. Destroy your image, Zawadi muttered. Obinna winced. Naomi continued. When did Sefu contact you for the first time? 3 years ago, Obinna said. He sent a message pretending to be Mirembe, demanding more money. But it wasn't just money, was it? Naomi asked. There were instructions, threats, warnings. Obinna nodded weakly. Yes. Naomi leaned in, eyes sharp. Why didn't you tell me you were being threatened? Obinna broke into a whisper. I didn't want to lose you. Naomi's voice softened, but only slightly. You lost me the moment you chose fear over honesty. Obinna's eyes glistened with tears. She continued, next question. Why did you keep messages instead of deleting them? That phone was hidden in your car. Why take the risk? Obinna wiped his face with trembling hands. I couldn't delete them because I thought someday I'd need evidence. Proof, in case things got worse. Naomi exchanged a look with Zawadi. It made sense and terrified her at the same time. Did Chinadu ever contact you directly? Naomi asked. Yes, Obinna whispered. Once. He told me to cooperate or he'd expose everything. And you didn't think that was worth telling your wife? Zawadi snapped. Obinna broke. I was ashamed. The room fell silent. Naomi stared at him with unreadable eyes. Then allow me to explain something to you, she said slowly. Right now, shame is the least of your problems. Obinna looked up, confused. Naomi continued. Seifu didn't just want money. He wanted power. And Chinedu wants the company. They're working together to destroy you completely. Emotionally, financially, socially. They are preparing to collapse everything you've built. Obinna's face drained of color. Why now? Because you're weak now, Naomi said. Because you're paying, because you're scared, because you're exactly where they want you. Zawadi nodded. They want to squeeze everything from you and then bury you. A tremor shook Obinna's hands. Naomi stood, so we are no longer playing defense. We take control now. Obinna blinked. What do you mean? Naomi took a deep breath. I am going to talk to Mirembe. Both Obinna and Zawadi looked startled. Naomi continued, she's a victim too. She may know things she never dared to say in front of Seifu. But Obinna hesitated. Seifu threatened her. She's terrified. That's why she'll talk, Naomi said coldly. Because she wants out, and because she knows we saw everything, she can't pretend anymore. Zawadi smiled faintly. This is why I said you should never underestimate my sister. Naomi ignored the comment. She walked down the hallway to the guest room, knocked once, then entered. Mirembe sat on the edge of the bed, clutching the blanket around her shoulders. She looked small, fragile, shattered. When she saw Naomi, her eyes filled with dread. Are you going to throw me out? No, Naomi said. Sit. Mirembe obeyed. Naomi sat beside her close, but not too close. I need you to tell me everything. Not for Obinna, for yourself, for your safety. Mirembe's eyes flickered. He'll kill me. No, Naomi said firmly, because he's no longer the one in control. Mirembe looked up slowly, hope and fear battling in her eyes. Naomi's voice was soft but powerful. Tell me what Seifu wants, truly wants. Mirembe closed her eyes. He wants the company. Naomi felt a cold jolt. Mirembe continued, voice trembling. Your husband's company is worth billions. Seifu knows the only way to take control is to destroy Obinna's credibility. If his reputation collapses publicly, he loses his position. And Chinedu takes over. Naomi's breath hitched. So Chinedu becomes CEO? And Seifu gets paid, Mirembe finished. A lot. Zawadi swore under her breath. So the incident with you, the paternity case, the blackmail, all of it was orchestrated. Yes, Mirembe whispered. Piece by piece. They wanted to break him slowly so he wouldn't fight back. Naomi's hands shook. How long have they been planning this? Since your father-in-law died, Mirembe said. Chinedu wanted power. Seifu wanted money. You were the weakness. Naomi froze. Me? Mirembe nodded miserably. Seifu said, all men like Obinna fear losing their wives more than losing their careers. He knew Obinna would pay anything to keep you from knowing. Naomi felt tears sting her eyes. Mirembe whispered, I'm sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. Naomi stood slowly, her voice low and fierce. Then help me stop them. Mirembe looked stunned. How? Naomi turned toward the door, determination tightening her spine. We expose them before they expose us. She stepped out of the room and returned to the kitchen. Obinna looked up anxiously. What did she say? Naomi met his gaze with fire in her voice. She told me everything. And now we take the fight to them. Zawadi smirked. Finally. Obina swallowed. What do we do? Naomi looked at both of them. We set a trap. And in that moment, something shifted inside her. She was no longer a betrayed wife. She was the hunter. Morning light crept into the kitchen, casting long shadows across the tiled floor. But Naomi felt none of its warmth. She stood with her arms folded, eyes sharp, mind racing like a living engine. Obina watched her as though seeing her for the first time as a gentle wife, not as the quiet soul of their home, but as a woman awakened, a woman forged by betrayal into something formidable. Zawadi cleared her throat. So, what exactly do you mean by a trap? Naomi took a deep breath. We're going to give Sefu exactly what he wants. Obina flinched. 3 million? Naomi, we don't have... No, she interrupted. Not the money, information, leverage. A reason for him to expose himself. Zawadi nodded slowly. You want to bait him? Yes. Obina shook his head frantically. Naomi, please. You don't understand how dangerous he is. No, Obina, she said quietly. You don't understand how dangerous I can be when I've been pushed too far. Zawadi gave a proud little smirk. Naomi turned to her sister. We need to build a scenario that forces Sefu and Chinedu to reveal themselves without realizing they're being recorded. Zawadi nodded. That means we need proof of their conspiracy. Something solid, voice, documents, threats. Exactly, Naomi said. And right now, the only thing Sefu wants more than our silence is our fear. So we give him the illusion that he still controls us. Obina hesitated. What do you want me to do? Naomi stepped right up to him, meeting his eyes. For once in your life, you are going to tell the truth, just not to the people who deserve it. Her voice was controlled, calm. You are going to message Sefu. Obina paled. Naomi, if I contact him... You already did, Zawadi reminded. It's not suspicious. Naomi handed him his own phone, the real one, not the second hidden device. You will text him, she said softly, and tell him you've agreed to his terms. Obina recoiled as though burned. No. Naomi, you don't understand. If I say that, he'll push harder. He'll take the bait, Naomi corrected. Because he thinks you're weak. Because he thinks you can be controlled. Let him believe it a little longer. Obina looked torn between fear and trust. What do I tell him? Tell him you have found access to the company's reserve funds, Naomi said. Tell him you need to meet with him privately tonight to finalize the transfer. Zawadi clapped once. Perfect. That'll get him running. Obina rubbed his forehead. And what then? He shows up. He demands money. And then what? Naomi exchanged a look with Zawadi. We'll be ready with evidence. That's where Mirembe comes in. Right on cue, Mirembe appeared in the doorway, wrapped tightly in a blanket. Her voice was small, exhausted. What do you need me to do? Naomi gestured for her to sit. We need you to help us expose Sefu and Chinedu. Mirembe swallowed hard. If they find out I helped, they won't, Naomi said gently. Because by the time they realize anything, everything will already be out. Zawadi added, and you'll be protected. Mirembe looked unconvinced, but nodded slowly. Tell me what you need. Naomi's tone softened. Everything you remember, every detail, every secret meeting, every instruction, every threat. Every moment where Sefu slipped names, places, numbers, anything. Mirembe clasped her trembling hands. I remember a lot. Too much. Good, Naomi said, because we're going to use it. For the next hour, they sat around the dining table while Mirembe told them everything, her voice shaking at times, breaking at others. She spoke about how Sefu first approached her after she lost her job, how he promised protection, how he manipulated her guilt and shame, how he slowly turned her into a pawn. She revealed something that made Naomi's heart twist. Sefu always records people when they don't know. He keeps everything. Every threat, every phone call, every confession. Naomi leaned forward. Where? Mirembe shook her head. He keeps a hidden drive in his car. Under the spare tire compartment, he thinks no one knows. Zawadi grinned. Oh, but now someone does. Naomi nodded, feeling her pulse quicken with cold determination. We need that drive. Obina stood abruptly. No, absolutely not. Going near him is suicide. He will kill us. Naomi turned to him slowly. He will kill us anyway if we don't stop him. Obinna sank back into his chair, defeated. So what do we do? Zawadi asked. Naomi thought for a long moment. We need a distraction, something that forces him to leave his car unattended. Mirembe hesitated. He checks his phone constantly. If someone messages him something urgent, he'll rush. Naomi's eyes sharpened. What kind of message? Mirembe swallowed. Tell him, someone saw Chinadu meeting with a board member behind his back, that Chinadu is planning to cut him out. Zawadi's eyes widened. He'll explode. Yes, Naomi whispered. And when he explodes, he gets sloppy. The plan took shape like a chessboard unfolding. Step 1. Obinna would text Sefu, saying he agreed to meet tonight for the money transfer. Step 2. Moments before the meeting, Mirembe would send Sefu a message disguised, anonymous claiming Chinadu was betraying him. Step 3. Sefu, paranoid and volatile, would confront Chinadu immediately. Step 4. While they were distracted, Naomi and Zawadi would search Sefu's car for the hidden drive. Step 5. They would use the evidence recordings, threats, messages to expose both men before they could retaliate. It was dangerous, risky, reckless. But for the first time since finding the second phone, Naomi felt a flicker of control. By late afternoon, the tension in the house was unbearable. Naomi checked her watch repeatedly. Zawadi paced like a restless lioness. Obinna sat in silence, hands clasped tightly, eyes red. Finally, it was time. Naomi nodded to Obinna. Send the message. His hands trembled as he typed. I can get the 3 million. Meet me tonight, alone. He hit send. Within 2 minutes, Sefu replied. Good. Don't be late. Naomi's chest tightened. Now we wait for Mirembe's part. Mirembe nodded shakily, took out her phone, and typed. I saw Chinadu talking to board members without you. They plan to remove you once. Obinna is gone. She hit send. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, Sefu's reply came. Where? Who told you? I'm coming. Zawadi grinned. Hook, line, and sinker. Naomi inhaled deeply. Let's go. They arrived near the meeting spot, an abandoned parking lot near a construction site. They parked far enough away to stay hidden, close enough to watch. Minutes later, Sefu's car roared into the lot. He jumped out immediately angry, muttering under his breath, and stormed away, presumably toward wherever he thought Chinadu might be. Naomi's heart hammered. Now, she and Zawadi stepped out quietly, approaching the car like shadows. Naomi's hands shook as she opened the back door, then the trunk. She lifted the carpet. There, Zawadi pointed. Spare tire compartment. Naomi opened it. A small black drive lay taped beneath the tire. She grabbed it quickly. Got it, she whispered. But before they could leave, a voice boomed across the lot. Well, well, well. Naomi froze. Sefu stood 10 meters away. He wasn't alone. Chinadu stood beside him, both men staring directly at her, both looking murderous. And Naomi realized they had been played, not the other way around. For a heartbeat, Naomi's lungs forgot how to work. Sefu's silhouette stood like a demon carved from darkness, the faint glow of the parking lot lamps outlining his broad shoulders. And beside him, Chinadu. Taller, leaner, with a cold smirk that sliced straight through Naomi's spine. Their trap had failed. No, they had been the prey all along. Zawadi's hand tightened around Naomi's wrist, pulling her a fraction behind, shield-like. Naomi felt the flash drive burning in her palm, slick with sweat. Well, isn't this poetic? Chinadu said, voice low and mocking. The devoted wife trying to become a detective. Naomi felt the fury rising inside her like a slow, burning wave. How long? She whispered. Sefu answered with a laugh. From the moment you texted, Zawadi inhaled sharply. He tracked your phone? He tapped his temple. My dear, I don't trust messages. I trust patterns. The moment Obinna suddenly agreed too quickly to pay 3 million, I knew something was off. And then a mysterious tip about Chinadu? Please. Chinadu clicked his tongue. Too obvious. I expected better from you, cousin. Cousin. The word felt like poison dripping down her throat. Naomi shot back. You wanted him to fail. You set the entire trap so he'd break. Oh, he broke beautifully, Chinadu said with a grin. Fear makes men stupid. Sefu stepped forward, his boots crunching on gravel. And now, the two of you sneaking around my car like rats? His smile was a dead thing. You thought you could outsmart me? Zawadi answered before Naomi could speak. Actually, yes. Sefu laughed again, a deep, thunderous sound that vibrated through the cold air. Bold, but tragically naive. Naomi's heart hammered wildly, but she forced her chin up. If you hurt us, the police will find out everything. Chinadu's smirk widened. Will they? Because from where I stand, you two just attempted to break into someone's car. That's a crime, Naomi. You set Obinna up. Naomi snapped. Chinadu shrugged. And you have no proof. The irony nearly choked Hertha Drive in her hand was the proof. But they couldn't escape with it. Sifu took a slow step closer. Naomi could smell his cologne sharp, metallic like blood and steel. Now, hand over what you stole. Zawadi's voice became ice. You'll have to take it. Seifu's smile widened. Gladly. He lunged. Naomi barely dodged as his hand swiped toward hers. She stumbled back, hitting the side of the car. Pain shot through her hip. Zawadi swung her arm up, blocking Seifu's second grab with surprising force. You hit hard, Seifu growled, rubbing his forearm. I'll break you first. Before he could move again, headlights flared across the lot. A car screeched into the space. Naomi's breath caught. Obinna. He jumped out before the car even fully stopped. Naomi! He shouted. Seifu turned, amused. Ah! The prince arrives. Obinna ran toward Naomi, stopping only when Seifu stepped between them. Touch her and I swear. Swear what? Seifu interrupted lazily. That you'll cry harder? Or pay faster? Chinedu laughed. You always were the family disgrace. Obinna's face tightened with rage. You destroyed everything. For what? A title? For what I deserved, Chinedu roared, stepping forward. Father should have chosen me. I worked harder, I sacrificed more, and yet you got everything. The company, the money, the respect. You got the life that should have been mine. Naomi stared at him, stunned. So all of this, all the pain, the threats, the blackmail, it was about jealousy? Chinedu's eyes burned. No. It was about justice. Justice? Naomi spat. You call destroying an innocent woman's life justice? You call manipulating a traumatized girl justice? You call extorting your own blood justice? But Chinedu just sneered. Survival. Seifu snapped his fingers. Enough sentiment. Give me the drive. Naomi's fingers tightened instinctively around the small device. Obinna stepped in front of her. You're not touching her. Oh? Seifu raised an eyebrow. I thought you two weren't on good terms. Secrets revealed, trust broken. It's been a rough night, no? Obinna swallowed but didn't move. You will not hurt her. Something flickered in Seifu's expression irritation. You know, he said slowly, this would have been cleaner if you just obeyed. But since you all want drama, he drew something from his jacket, not a gun, worse, a long silver knife that glinted under the parking lot lights. Naomi's blood froze. Come here, Seifu said softly to Obinna. You want to play hero? Come. Obinna didn't move, but Naomi saw his hands shaking. Zawadi whispered under her breath, if he gets close to Obinna, he'll kill him. Naomi's mind raced. Words, actions, decisions. Everything inside her screamed in chaos. Until her gaze landed on the drive in her hand. She took one step forward. Wait, Seifu paused. Naomi lifted the drive between two fingers. You want it? Fine, let's make a trade. Zawadi's eyes widened. Naomi, no. It's the only way, Naomi whispered. Seifu tilted his head. Go on. You take this, Naomi said, voice steady despite her racing pulse, and you let us walk away. All of us. Me, my sister, my husband, Mirembe too. Chinedu scoffed. You think Seifu negotiates with ants? But Seifu raised a hand to silence him. Let her finish. You get your precious evidence, Naomi said, and you walk away. If your plan is to destroy us later, you can do it without killing anyone tonight. But if you kill us now, the police will find everything. A slow smile curved across Seifu's face. Brave Naomi. So afraid and yet so strategic. He took one step closer. But here's the problem. I don't trust you. I don't trust you either, Naomi shot back. Chinadu snapped. Stop wasting time. Take the drive and end it. Seifu's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Bring it here. Naomi hesitated. Zawadi whispered, don't. But Naomi knew one thing, if she didn't hand it over, they would all die tonight. So she stepped forward, one slow step, then another. Seifu's eyes stayed locked on the drive. 5 steps away, 4, 3. Naomi felt her pulse in her throat. 2, 1. She held out her hand. Seifu reached for the drive. His fingers brushed it. And then Naomi moved. She jerked her hand back and hurled the drive with all her strength toward the concrete barrier across the lot. Everyone froze. The drive hit the barrier and shattered. Plastic, metal, chips, destroyed. No, Seifu roared, lunging forward. Naomi stumbled backward, but Zawadi was faster. She grabbed Naomi and shoved her behind Obina. Everything exploded at once. Chinadu charged toward the barrier, screaming. Seifu lunged at Obina. Obina raised his arms to defend himself. Naomi screamed Zawadi's name. Zawadi grabbed a fire extinguisher from the ground and swung. A crushing thud echoed across the lot. The extinguisher slammed into Seifu's forearm, knocking the knife from his hand. He howled in pain. Chinadu spun around, realizing the drive was gone. You idiots! You ruined everything. But Naomi, trembling uncontrollably, stepped out from behind Obina. No, she said, her voice shaking but fierce. We ended your control. Seifu lunged again. But sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, closer. Zawadi smiled coldly. Looks like someone called the police. Naomi blinked. Who? And then she saw her, Mirembe, standing at the edge of the lot, phone still in hand. Naomi felt tears burn her eyes. Seifu and Chinadu turned toward the sound, fury twisting their faces into something monstrous. But it was too late. Police cars screeched into the parking lot. Officers jumped out, guns raised. Drop your weapons. Seifu froze. Chinadu panicked. Obina fell to his knees, sobbing in relief. Naomi leaned into Zawadi's shoulder, trembling. The nightmare wasn't over. But for the first time, someone else was finally in control. Blue and red lights washed over the broken pieces of the parking lot. The sirens faded, replaced by shouting officers, clattering boots, and the strained breathing of everyone caught in the storm. Naomi's ears rang. Her mind felt suspended, floating somewhere between terror and relief. Seifu's knife lay several feet away, glinting under the pulsing lights like a final warning. Chinadu, wild-eyed and sweating, raised his hands slowly as officers closed in. His expression was a twisted mix of rage and disbelief, as though the universe itself had betrayed him. Seifu, however, stood unnervingly still, breathing hard, jaw clenched, eyes burning with a hatred so sharp it felt physical. Even surrounded by officers, he looked like a man who hadn't accepted defeat. 2 officers pinned his hands behind his back. Move, one barked. Seifu's gaze flicked to Naomi. A silent promise, or a threat. She shivered. Chinadu didn't go quietly. Get your hands off me! I didn't do anything. They broke into Seifu's car. They're the criminals. They set us up. Sir, you are under arrest, an officer said flatly. We found armed threats, extortion attempts, and multiple recordings in your vehicle. Save it for court. Chinadu's face collapsed with panic. What recordings? The drive is destroyed. The officer tightened the cuffs. We're talking about the other recordings. The ones stored on your cloud accounts. Chinadu froze, blinking. What cloud accounts? Naomi inhaled sharply. Zawadi smirked. He's sloppy. That's what arrogance does. Another officer approached Naomi. Ma'am, we received a call from a distressed woman who claimed 2 men were planning violent extortion here. She gave us audio recordings. Said her name was Mirembe? Naomi turned. Mirembe stood several meters away, shaking, her face streaked with tears. She hugged herself tightly as though holding her own body together. When their eyes met, something inside Naomi softened. Mirembe had every reason to run, to hide, to protect herself, but she didn't. She had chosen the one thing that could have gotten her killed. Truth. The officer continued. We'll need all your statements at the station. For now, you're safe. Safe. The word felt unreal. Zawadi placed a hand on Naomi's back. Let's go. Before either of those demons find a way to sprout wings. But Naomi didn't move immediately. She watched as Sifu was shoved into the back of a police car. He never looked away from her, not once. His stare was cold steel. Chinedu thrashed and yelled until officers forced him into another vehicle. Only when the doors slammed shut did Naomi's knees weaken. Obinna caught her before she fell. Naomi, are you all right? She pulled away gently. I'm fine. But she wasn't, not even close. Zawadi touched her arm. We need to get to the station. Give our statements. Naomi nodded numbly. The police station was bright and loud, filled with fluorescent lights and the clatter of paperwork. Naomi sat at a metal table, a cup of untouched water in front of her. The officers were kind, thorough, patient. They recorded everything she remembered, from the second phone to the messages to the confrontation in the parking lot. When it was done, Naomi leaned back in the chair, exhausted. Obinna sat across the room giving his statement. He looked older than he had yesterday, worn down to his bones. Zawadi finished hers quickly and came to sit beside Naomi. You did well, Naomi let out a humorless laugh. Did I? Because it feels like my life just exploded. Zawadi softened. Sometimes life has to explode before it can rebuild. Besides, you're still standing. Naomi didn't answer. After another hour of questioning, the officer returned. Mrs. Obinna, we'll need you to wait here just a bit longer. But I thought you should know your cousin-in-law has confessed to most of the conspiracy. Naomi blinked. He confessed? Yes. He claims Sefu forced him, that he was manipulated, but the evidence suggests they worked together. Naomi nodded slowly, absorbing the news. But here's the part that may interest you, the officer continued. He admitted something else, something unrelated to the extortion. Naomi tensed. What? The officer hesitated. He confessed that he falsified details during that paternity claim 2 years ago. Naomi's heart dropped. What do you mean falsified? Apparently he orchestrated the test request through the law firm. He fabricated details about the alleged affair. He planned to record your husband's reactions to use them later. It was all part of a long-term manipulation strategy. Naomi felt the breath leave her. So the paternity case was fake? Yes, ma'am. Naomi swallowed hard, emotions tangled, relief, anger, heartbreak. She didn't know which one hurt more. Why? She whispered. He said destroying Obinna wasn't enough. He wanted to watch him crumble slowly. Wanted him paranoid. Wanted him to lose your trust. Zawadi made a disgusted sound. He nearly succeeded. The officer nodded sympathetically. But he failed. Because you were smart. And brave. Naomi didn't feel brave. She felt broken. Your husband is finishing his statement, the officer added. You can speak with him once everything is cleared. Naomi nodded. The moment the officer walked away, Zawadi turned to her. So, Chinedu's a snake at every level. Nothing new. But Naomi wasn't listening, because her mind had just unlocked the final piece. The guilt Obinna carried, the tears, the shame, the isolation. Everything Sefu and Chinedu had done was designed to break the marriage, designed to tear them apart, and it had nearly worked. Naomi swallowed. Zawa, I need to think. About Obinna? Zawadi asked carefully. Naomi closed her eyes. About everything. When Obinna finally approached, he looked fragile, like a man who'd survived a hurricane only to find his home in ruins. Naomi, he whispered. She held up a hand. Not here, not now. He nodded silently. They walked out of the station together into the early morning light. Naomi stopped near the steps, staring at the horizon. It felt like the end of a long, brutal night. Obinna turned to her with trembling hands. Naomi, I know saying sorry isn't enough. I know I should have told you. I know I failed you in every way a husband can fail a wife. Naomi's jaw tightened. He continued, but I need you to know something. No matter how much they tried to destroy me, the thing I feared losing most was you. Naomi's eyes filled, but she didn't look at him. Obinna stepped closer. I will do whatever it takes to earn back your trust. Anything, Naomi whispered. Trust isn't something you earn with words. I know, he said, voice breaking, but I'm not giving up on us. Naomi let silence answer him. Zawadi's car pulled up. She rolled down the window. You ready? Naomi finally turned to Obinna. I need time. Real time. To think, to feel, to breathe. I can't go home with you tonight. Obinna nodded slowly. I understand. But Naomi could see the ache behind his eyes. She stepped away. Obinna didn't follow. He just watched her leave because it was the first time he understood that he didn't deserve to follow. Naomi got into the car, closed the door, and exhaled a long, shaking breath. Driving away, her heart felt heavy, but for the first time in days, it also felt free. She wasn't sure what came next, but she knew one thing. Her story wasn't over. Not yet. Zawadi drove in silence for several minutes, the tires humming softly against the asphalt as dawn colored the sky, a muted rose. Naomi leaned her head against the window, watching the blurry shapes of houses, trees, and passing motorbikes slide by. Her mind wasn't in the car. It wasn't anywhere physical. It was drifting somewhere deep somewhere, bruised, wounded, but strangely alert. Everything she thought she knew about her marriage had crumbled. Everything she believed about Obinna's honesty had shattered. And everything she feared about herself, her blind trust, her gentle heart now felt like a trap she had willingly walked into. Say something, Zawadi whispered finally. You're scaring me. Naomi didn't move. I don't know what to say. Start with what you're feeling. What I'm feeling? Naomi whispered, exhaling sharply. Everything. Nothing. Rage, sadness, relief, betrayal, all at once. Zawadi nodded. Makes sense. Naomi turned her head slightly. Does it? Yes, her sister replied firmly. Because you're human, and because your world just got smashed like a cheap glass. Naomi let out a strained laugh. It feels worse than that. Then say this instead, Zawadi said gently. You survived. Naomi closed her eyes. The words settled somewhere deep in her chest, heavy and warm. Survived? Yes, she had, but surviving was not the same as healing. Where are we going? Naomi asked. To my apartment, Zawadi said. You're staying with me until you decide what comes next. Naomi nodded slowly. Thank you, always. Later that morning, after a long shower and a change of clothes, Naomi sat curled up on Zawadi's couch with a cup of tea cradled in her hands. Her fingers wrapped around the warmth, but it didn't reach her heart. A knock sounded at the door. Zawadi stiffened. Stay here. But Naomi had already recognized the soft, hesitant pattern. It's Obinna, she whispered. Zawadi rolled her eyes. I'm going to set him on fire. But she opened the door anyway, only halfway. Obinna stood outside, looking smaller than Naomi had ever seen him. His eyes were hollow, dark crescents beneath them. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair uncombed. Please, he whispered. I need to talk to her. Zawadi crossed her arms. You should be glad I don't keep a baseball bat. Zawa, Naomi murmured. Let him in. Reluctantly, Zawadi stepped aside. Obinna entered like a man walking on broken glass. He looked at Naomi, pain etched deep into his features. Thank you for seeing me, he said softly. Naomi took a deep breath. Say what you came to say. Obinna sat across from her, hands trembling in his lap. Today, the police released initial findings. They found several recordings in Sifu's cloud accounts. The threats, the blackmail, even a video of him and Chinedu discussing how to break me slowly. Naomi flinched. Obinna continued. They also found footage of me in the guest room 5 years ago. Her stomach tightened. Footage? Of you and Mirembe? Yes, he whispered, voice cracking. But there's something you should know. Naomi braced herself. The footage shows I stopped immediately, that I apologized, that I left the room. There was nothing beyond that moment. Nothing physical happened. They cut the video to make it look worse when they used it to scare Mirembe. Naomi's eyes filled despite herself. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you show it to me years ago? Because I couldn't look at it myself, Obinna said brokenly. I was ashamed of the man I was that night. I didn't want you to ever see that version of me. Not even if it proved I didn't force her. The guilt was enough. Naomi's heart twisted painfully. This was the man she married, flawed, fearful, misguided, but not cruel. But that didn't erase the pain he had caused. She swallowed. Is that all? No, he whispered. There's one more thing. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. Naomi stiffened. I wrote everything down, he said softly. Every account, every payment, Every interaction with Sefu and Chinedu, every fear, every lie, everything I was too cowardly to tell you. He placed the envelope on the table gently, like it might shatter. You deserve to know all of it, he said, whether you stay or go. Naomi stared at it for a long moment before whispering, "And what do you want, Obinna?" He hesitated. Then, "You," he whispered. "But I don't deserve you. I know that. So what I truly want is for you to be safe and to be free." Naomi's breath caught. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he continued. "Not today, maybe not ever, but I'm asking for a chance to show you the man I can still be." Zawadi looked away, her jaw tight. Naomi knew her sister hated seeing her soften, but she couldn't deny the tremble in her own chest. "Obinna," Naomi whispered, "I don't know if I can ever go back to how things were." "I know," he said, "but whatever you decide, I'll accept it." He stood to leave, but before he reached the door, "I'm not done," Naomi said. He paused. She stood slowly, deliberately. "I may need time, I may need space, but I'm not running away from the truth anymore. Not yours, not mine." She stepped closer, her voice gaining strength. "But rebuilding trust isn't about you speaking. It's about you showing. Choosing honesty every day. Choosing transparency every day. Choosing us every day." Obinna nodded, tears slipping down his face. "And I need to decide if choosing us is something I can still do." "It is," he said immediately. "Maybe," Naomi whispered. "But it has to be my choice, not your promise." He bowed his head. "I understand." She hesitated. Then quietly, "Stay close, not too close. Just don't disappear." "I won't," he promised. Naomi exhaled. "Good." Zawadi groaned under her breath. "Oh Lord, this man is about to get a second chance." Naomi didn't smile, but her eyes softened. "Just a little." "You're not forgiven," she told Obinna. "Not yet." He nodded. "I don't expect to be. But you're not sentenced either." Something in Obinna's posture loosened like a man allowed to breathe for the first time in years. He stepped back. "Thank you," he whispered, "for not giving up on yourself." Then he left quietly, closing the door behind him. Naomi stood still for a long moment. Zawadi placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're doing the right thing." Naomi shook her head. "I don't know what the right thing is anymore." "Yes, you do," Zawadi said. "It's whatever gives you peace." Naomi closed her eyes, letting the truth settle inside her chest like a steady drumbeat. Peace. She didn't have it yet, but for the first time, she felt she was walking toward it. Slowly, carefully, truthfully. The battle wasn't over, but she was no longer fighting it alone. Naomi didn't return home that night, nor the next. She stayed in the quiet safety of Zawadi's apartment, surrounded by soft cushions, warm tea, and a sister's unwavering presence. But even here, peace was fragile. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the parking lot, the knife, the flashing lights, the rage in Sefu's eyes, the desperate fear in Obinna's. Her mind replayed conversations like broken film reels. Obinna's apologies, his tears, his confessions, the letter in the envelope still unopened on Zawadi's coffee table. Naomi hadn't touched it, not yet. She wasn't sure she was ready to see the entire truth in writing. On the third morning, she awoke before dawn, unable to sleep. She sat on the balcony wrapped in a blanket, staring at the horizon. Early morning traffic hummed below, distant birds chirped, and the air was crisp with a hint of cold. Life was moving forward, but Naomi felt stuck between two worlds. Zawadi emerged with coffee. "You should rest." "I'm okay," Naomi murmured. "You're not, but you're trying. That counts." Naomi tried to smile, but her lips barely moved. "What if trying isn't enough?" "It will be," Zawadi said. "But first you need answers." Naomi looked at the envelope. "I'm afraid." "Of what's inside?" "No," Naomi whispered. "Of what it will make me feel." Zawadi set the cup down gently, "Then read it when you're ready, not before." Naomi nodded, though the weight inside her chest remained. By noon, Naomi received a call from the police. She answered with a tight breath. "Mrs. Obinna," the officer said, "we've made progress. We've confirmed Chinedu and Sefu collaborated for years. Extortion, threats, falsified legal cases, financial manipulation. Sifu's facing several charges, including attempted assault. Chinedu is facing conspiracy and fraud. Naomi closed her eyes. What about Mirembe? She's being treated as a victim, the officer replied. She provided significant evidence. Her cooperation helped solidify the case. Relief washed through Naomi. Thank you. One more thing, the officer added. Your husband has been helping us too. He submitted financial records and communication logs. His testimony has been consistent, transparent. Naomi's heart squeezed. I see. Just wanted you to know. Have a good day, ma'am. She hung up slowly. Zawadi raised an eyebrow. Obinna is playing responsible for once. Naomi sighed. He's trying. And you hate that? No, Naomi whispered. I hate that it matters. That evening, there was a knock on the door. Zawadi peeked through the peephole and groaned. Guess who? Naomi's chest tightened. Let him in. Obinna looked exhausted but steadier than before. He carried a small bag food, Naomi guessed, and a folder under his arm. I didn't come to pressure you, he said gently. I just came to update you. Naomi sat down. Zawadi hovered nearby, arms crossed. Obinna cleared his throat. Seifu and Chinedu will not be released anytime soon. The evidence is overwhelming. Thanks to Mirembe and thanks to you. Naomi said nothing. He swallowed. I also wanted to tell you, the board called me today. Naomi's eyes drifted up. About your position? Yes, he said. They know everything now. I told them myself. Zawadi's jaw dropped. You told them? Are you insane? Obinna shook his head. I'm done hiding. I told them about the blackmail, the extortion, the pressure, everything. They're reviewing my conduct, but most of the leadership supports me staying, as long as I undergo counseling and formal review. Naomi stared at him. You risked your career. It was already at risk, he said softly. But lying was worse. I needed to rebuild my name honestly, even if it meant losing everything. Naomi looked away, her emotions a storm she could barely contain. Obinna continued. And one more thing. He handed her a sealed envelope, a second one. Naomi frowned. What's this? Proof, he whispered. Proof that the paternity case was fabricated. Proof that I never touched anyone willingly. Proof that the guest room incident was exactly what I told you. Proof that the extortion was real. Proof I am not the monster you think I am. Naomi hesitated. I don't. Don't read it now, he said gently. Read it when your heart is ready, when you want clarity, not answers. He stood slowly. I'll leave now. But before I go, Naomi. Her name trembled in his mouth. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm only asking for the chance to try again, to be better, to earn whatever piece of your heart is still alive. Naomi swallowed, unable to speak. Obinna nodded softly and turned toward the door. But then another voice appeared from the hallway. Mommy? Naomi's breath caught. Her niece Zawadi's 6-year-old daughter peeked around the corner, clutching a stuffed giraffe. Her innocence sliced through the heavy air, reminding Naomi that life didn't stop simply because hearts were breaking. The little girl stepped forward, sleepy-eyed. Auntie Naomi, are you sad? Naomi crouched down, tears gathering. A little. The girl hugged her tightly. It's okay. Sad things go away when you share them. Naomi pulled her close, heart trembling. Obinna watched with a painful softness, lost, hopeful, broken. Naomi whispered to the child, Thank you. Then she stood again, wiping her face. Obinna. He turned instantly. Naomi inhaled. I don't know where we go from here. I don't know if I can trust you again, but I'm willing to start talking. Not as husband and wife, not yet, but as two people who survived something impossible. A spark flickered in Obinna's eye small, cautious but alive. I'll take that, he whispered. Naomi nodded. For now, that's all I can give. He accepted it with quiet reverence, then left. The door clicked shut. Naomi stood very still. Then she walked to the balcony again, watching the stars emerge one by one. She didn't cry this time. She simply breathed. For the first time in days, she felt the faintest echo of peace. Not enough to heal her, but enough to guide her. Tomorrow, she would read the envelopes. Tomorrow, she would decide the future. Tonight, she allowed herself to simply exist. Alive. Bruised. But no longer broken. Naomi waited until the house had gone completely. Still Zawadi asleep in the next room, the night breeze whispering through the open balcony door before she finally approached the coffee table. 2 envelopes lay there, identical in size but different in weight. One held answers she had demanded from Obinna, the other held answers she didn't know if she was ready to face. She sat on the couch, fingers trembling slightly, as she picked up the first envelope. For a long moment, she simply stared at it. She whispered to herself, "Whatever is inside already happened. Reading it won't change the past, only the future." With that, she opened it. Inside was Obinna's handwriting page after page. Neat, deliberate strokes. A man trying to organize chaos with ink. Naomi began reading, her heart tightening with every paragraph. He wrote about the night of his father's death, how grief had consumed him, how he drank until his vision blurred, how he stumbled into the guest room thinking he was entering his own. He described the moment he realized Mirembe wasn't who he thought she was, how shame hit him like a blow, how he apologized repeatedly, how she cried, how she begged him not to tell anyone, fearing she would be blamed. Naomi's hands shook. He wrote about how days later, Mirembe left the house without warning, how he tried to reach out but she ignored him, how he convinced himself letting her go was best for both of them. Then came the next pages where darkness deepened, how the first anonymous message arrived 3 months later. "I know what you did," followed by another. "You owe her. Pay if you want silence." Obinna described how he panicked, how fear of losing Naomi paralyzed him, how he hid the messages, hoping they would stop. Then Seifu entered the story. At first posing as someone trying to help Mirembe, then demanding money, then threats, then recordings, then manipulation, then full control. Naomi felt her stomach twist painfully. She pressed her fist to her eyes, trying to stop the tears because crying felt like drowning in memories she wasn't ready to revisit. But she forced herself to keep reading. She reached the section about the paternity case, the one that shattered her when she found the documents. Obinna wrote about the terror he felt when the letter arrived, the certainty that he had destroyed his marriage beyond repair. He wrote about how he went for the test alone, shaking, unable to breathe, and how 2 weeks later, the negative result arrived, but with it came a new message. "Whether the child is yours or not, we can still use this." Naomi felt nausea rise in her throat. Obinna wrote how that was the moment he knew someone else was orchestrating everything. Someone who knew him, his fears, his weaknesses, his guilt. Chinedu. The next pages describe the years of silence, the hidden payments, the sleepless nights, the nightmares. The moments he almost confessed, the moments he watched Naomi laugh and felt undeserving of her smile. By the time she reached the end, Naomi's cheeks were wet, her heart trembling. The final line read, "I don't expect redemption, but I hope someday you'll see the man behind the mistakes." Naomi pressed the letter to her chest, inhaling shakily. "For years," she whispered, "he carried this alone. And for years, I never knew." But the truth did not erase the betrayal. It only gave context to the wounds. She needed a moment to breathe before opening the second envelope. She placed the first aside gently, then picked up the second. Inside were printed documents, police reports, digital transcripts, screenshots of Seifu and Chinedu's messages, evidence provided by the police and the law firm. There were also 2 flash drives containing recordings of the men planning the extortion. One document caught her eye. Edited surveillance footage. Guest room incident. And beneath it, full, unedited version included in USB. Naomi stared at it. Her hands trembled as she inserted the USB into Zawadi's laptop. A video window appeared. Her heart pounded. She pressed play. The footage was grainy, taken from a hidden camera they must have planted years ago. She watched Obinna enter the guest room, stumbling, clearly intoxicated. She saw Mirembe in the corner, frightened, struggling to understand what was happening. She saw Obinna reach out, confused, grieving, low stand, then freeze as soon as he realized who she was. He backed away immediately. He apologized repeatedly. He left the room. There was no assault. No violence. No malice. Just a horrible, painful misunderstanding magnified into a weapon by Chinedu. Naomi covered her mouth, sobbing quietly, not because everything was fixed, not because the pain was gone, but because seeing the truth, the real truth, untangled a knot inside her heart she didn't know how to carry anymore. She cried for the years of hidden suffering, for Mirembe's trauma, for Obinna's shame, for her own shattered trust, and for the marriage that had been built on love but beaten by secrets. When the video ended, Naomi wiped her face. She sat silently, letting the emotional storm settle. After a long while, Zawadi walked in. She must have heard the sound of the video. She sat beside Naomi and placed a gentle hand on her back. "What now?" Zawadi whispered. Naomi looked at the screen, then at the envelope, then at her own trembling hands. "I don't know," she whispered. "Part of me is furious. Part of me is broken. But part of me sees the truth now." Zawadi studied her carefully. "Do you want to go back to him?" Naomi shook her head. "Not go back. Not yet. That's not what this is." "Then what?" Naomi inhaled deeply. "I need to talk to him. Face to face. Without fear, without anger, without lies." And then, Naomi looked toward the window, where the night was quiet and still. A single star glimmered faintly, the kind of star you only see after a storm clears. And then, she whispered, "I decide whether this marriage can be rebuilt or whether it ends tonight." Zawadi squeezed her hand gently. "Whatever you choose, I'm with you." Naomi smiled weakly. "I know." She took the letters and evidence, placed them carefully into a folder, and stood. Zawadi looked worried. "You're going now?" "Yes," Naomi said softly, "because if I wait until morning, fear will win." She grabbed her purse, her keys, and her courage. As she stepped out of the door, her heart shook but her steps did not. Tonight, she would confront the man she loved. Tonight, she would demand truth with nothing left to hide behind. Tonight, she would choose her future. And whether that future held forgiveness, freedom, or something in between, Naomi was finally ready to face it. Life does not crumble in a single moment. It fractures slowly, in secrets kept, truths avoided, words left unsaid. But healing, too, begins slowly. Not with apologies or explanations, but with honesty, with courage, with the willingness to face the wounds we fear the most. Naomi learned that love is not blind trust. Love is choosing to see clearly, even when the truth hurts. And strength is not measured by how much we endure, but by how bravely we stand when everything we believe shatters. Healing is not about forgetting the past. It is about choosing what the future deserves to carry. Share with us in the comments, what part of Naomi's journey resonated with you the most? And if you enjoy emotional, powerful African folktale dramas, feel free to subscribe. We'd love to share more stories with you.